China's influence in Latin American and Caribbean ports is far more widespread than previously assumed. A lot of the attention has been towards the Panama Canal. Much of the discourse has been centered around a more nebulous threat that China could potentially station warships there or disrupt the access to the canal in times of emergency. We think some of those concerns are absolutely valid, but we think it's necessary to take a broader approach, looking at both the economic, the security, the intelligence dimensions of PRC port projects. Our new report, No Safe Harbor, examines 37 different Chinese-linked port projects in Latin America and the Caribbean. We used a total of 11 different metrics, split into 2 final subgroupings: US exposure and Chinese influence. US exposure evaluates things like how much does the United States rely on trade with a particular port? Are there nearby US military bases? The Chinese influence metric evaluates how much China could influence day-to-day operations at a port. The top 3 riskiest ports include first the port of Kingston, Jamaica, and then 2 ports in Mexico, Manzanillo and Veracruz. These ports scored high on both US exposure metrics and Chinese influence metrics. We think that this challenges the traditional narrative by showing that when you actually start to factor in risks to US national security and the level of China's influence, you see a very different picture of which ports are riskiest. The United States can try and decrease China's influence over ports by supporting things like buyback programs. We've seen recently with BlackRock signing an agreement to assume ownership of 43 different ports owned by Hutchison, including 7 that are in the Americas. That's a useful template for future actions to try and reduce the level of China's influence. Second, the United States can evaluate where China is invested and try and reduce its own exposure to those particular ports. And finally, we see the United States needs to work with host countries to raise awareness about the potential risks and increase transparency and inspection at key Chinese-owned and operated ports. However, no 2 ports are alike, and we need to be careful in how we evaluate the relative risk of any individual port project.